Hey there, welcome back to the second video in the series, The Anatomy of a Strong Offer. As always, my name is Deckard. I am a local realtor with eXp Realty here in beautiful Ocean City, New Jersey, coming to you each and every week with lots of helpful information about the real estate market here, the town itself, to make sure that you make the right decision when you are ready. In today's video, we're going to be talking through in detail the 9 different ways that you can create a strong offer and the levers that you can pull to give yourself the best odds of landing that dream property. I always encourage my clients who are buying to put themselves in the seller's shoes to the best that they can. And when I ask them, what is the most important thing to you? 11 times out of 10, the answer is price. While price isn't everything and you can craft an incredibly strong offer and win with a lower price than others, it is by far the biggest factor for the majority of sellers out there, specifically here in Ocean City, because these are second homes. Timing usually isn't as big of an issue, and other components can certainly help differentiate you against other offers. But I would be lying to you if I said that price was not the number one factor that you need to consider when you're crafting a strong offer. If you've been paying attention to the market over the past 2 years, you know that demand is crazy high, and a lot of homes are going for over the asking price, sometimes by a substantial amount to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. One of the big fears that my buyer clients have had over that time frame is that they don't want to overpay. Now, there are 2 ways to think about overpaying. Number 1 is paying a sale price over and above the appraised value. And number 2 is bidding too much up front and not even understanding or knowing just how much money you spent above and beyond the next highest bidder. The tool that we use to make sure that scenario number 2 does not happen is what we call an escalation clause. To get an understanding of how that works, think of it like an eBay auction. If you've ever bid on eBay, there is an auto bid option where you automatically bid a certain amount more than the next highest bid when it comes in. This escalation clause acts exactly the same. You set an increment, you set a maximum price that you're willing to go up to, and that this escalation clause can only go to a certain point before it stops. What this does is gives you the opportunity to increase your offer without having to go into negotiations or waste anybody's time. Again, in short, this gives you the opportunity to go in at a number that you're comfortable with without risking blowing everybody out of the water right up front. So it's incredibly important that you think about this when you are putting together your offer. So the second opportunity you have to craft a strong offer is by putting a strong earnest money deposit down. This is what most people think of as money up front, due at signing, but these typically are not due at signing. The standard is they are due within 7 days of the contract being executed. And think of it this way. If you're a seller, you have 2 relatively similar offers. Offer A is going to put down $1,000 up front. Offer B is going to put $50,000 up front. The amount of money that a buyer puts down as an earnest money deposit shows how serious they are about making it to the closing table. So as a hypothetical, let's say that you chose offer A because it was $2,000 higher in sale price, despite being $49,000 lower in earnest money deposit. That buyer could walk away 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 days before closing, and the only repercussion that they have is losing that $1,000. Nobody wants to walk away from $1,000. But I can promise you, if you had gone with offer B, they are significantly less likely to walk away for any reason that is not covered by one of their contingencies, because they're not going to walk away from $50,000. So it is something that, again, as a buyer, if you're planning to go forward with this property and you have liquid assets to put down a very strong deposit, I encourage you to do that, because it's a simple way of increasing the attractiveness of your offer without putting yourself at additional risk. The third area for improvement is one of my favorites. It's what's called the mortgage contingency. While most offers have actually been cash over the past year, specifically here in Ocean City, a lot of buyers need financing. They need to apply for a mortgage in order to purchase their home here in town. What this mortgage contingency does for you, if you are going to be getting a mortgage to buy your home here, would be to give you an out of the contract should you not actually be approved for the mortgage. That makes the lender that we choose, the pre-qual process that we do up front, very important, so that you can have confidence that you're going to get approved for that mortgage. But in the case that that doesn't happen, you would be able to break the contract, get your deposit back, and you are not out anything besides possibly the inspection cost. But put yourself in the seller's shoes. Would you rather have an offer without that potential eject button or with it? Depending on the dates that are put in that contingency clause, if that remains in the contract, it's possible that the home will be off the market for a substantial period of time before being allowed and able to put it back out there. Sellers go through a lot of headache having to show their home, keep it clean, all throughout the initial stages. Many don't want the risk of having to put it back out on the market. And a lot of folks here in Ocean City only sell when they're upgrading, when they find another property to buy. So accepting an offer that has a mortgage contingency, in their eyes, puts them at risk for jeopardizing their purchase as well, because if one domino falls, the other one tends to go too. Now, in order to waive this mortgage contingency, you have to show that you could move forward with the purchase with your assets alone. This does not mean that you intend to. This does not mean that you need to. You simply have to be able to show what we call proof of funds. These can be in retirement accounts. They can be in home equity. There's a lot of ways to show that you could go forward with this purchase, should you need to, if you do not get approved for the mortgage. In that regard, without that mortgage contingency, it is comparable to a cash offer because you don't have that financing approval being a requirement to make it to closing. So again, the name of this game is appealing to the seller, meeting their needs where possible, while understanding your own risk tolerance in areas where you're comfortable giving a little bit to give yourself a better chance. Now, the fourth area, which can be a very big one, once again, especially for those sellers who are going to be upgrading, is the closing date. Some of these owners and sellers already have a purchase under contract and they know when they're going to sell. They prefer to close before or on the same day as the property they're purchasing so that they don't have to shuffle funds. They can leave their money in the stock market wherever they may be pulling it from. So one way to get ahead of potential other buyers is simply to find out what their preference is ahead of time. The last thing you want to do, and it's a silly way to lose out, is for your agent not to find out the seller's preference. Because if you're the only one who asks that question and are able to meet that need up front, it may give you additional leverage on some of these other points because we're meeting their most basic and most important need outside of price. The fifth area for potential improvement is with the home inspection. Now, this is a big one. I never encourage people to completely waive the inspection. You're essentially going into a property, into a new home, without a manual, without an owner's manual. And inspections, again, I tell every buyer this is not an area for you to nickel and dime the sellers. This is primarily a way to make sure that you're not purchasing a lemon, a home that's going to have significant structural issues or has major needs right off the bat that you can't budget for, that would put this property out of reach for you. One of my favorite ways to reword this clause is to amend it so that we don't waive the inspection entirely. We simply give the sellers confidence that we're not going to nickel and dime them by saying something along the lines of, we won't be asking for any small items that would cost under $2,000 to repair. We're only concerned about big issues. What this does is gives you the protection and the ability to walk away from a home or a contract if a major defect is found and they won't pay for it, and you get your deposit back. But again, it gives them the peace of mind that they're not going to have to replace an outlet that isn't functioning properly. They're not going to have to change a light bulb that's 27 feet in the air. Some buyers ask for very, very silly inspection fixes. This to me is the perfect middle ground. It allows you to keep your protections while also appealing to the seller and giving them comfort and confidence that they're not going to be nickel and dimed. The most aggressive you can get with this clause is to go in truly as is and have the inspection either not at all or for informational purposes only. Again, I always encourage you to have a home inspection. But if you were to go in completely as is, you are on the hook for anything that is found that could be a major defect. So you need to make sure that, again, that's within your comfort level when it comes to risk tolerance. But again, I'm sure you can see, if you were the seller, would you prefer an offer that has an inspection clause where not only could they walk away if they don't like the findings of that inspection, or they could be costing you tens of thousands of dollars? Or would you prefer an as-is offer where that is not even in the conversation? We are in the home stretch. We only have 4 more to go. So if you found this helpful, do me a favor and make sure you hit the like button down below, as well as hit subscribe if you aren't already subscribed to my channel. And that little notification bell will allow you to be the first to know when I put out new information all about the real estate market here in Ocean City. So number 6, we have the condo review. This does not apply to single family homes, but if you're purchasing a duplex, townhouse, or condo, this is going to be a contingency that is baked into the contract. What that does is gives you 10 business days from the time that you sign the contract and that it is fully executed by everybody to review the master deed, or condo docs as we call them. And if you don't approve of them, if they have a restriction that you do not like, that you would not want to own this property because of that, you can hit the eject button, get your deposit back, and break the contract. For my clients, if they're seriously interested in a property, I try to get these up front so that we can pre-screen these master deeds to make sure that we don't have any potential red flags. And that allows us to wipe out one of these contingencies that makes it no risk whatsoever, but at the same time, makes you more appealing than other offers who still have that eject button ingrained. Number 7 is a big one, especially with the ever-rising prices, would be the appraisal gap. And what we mean when we talk about an appraisal gap is if the home does not appraise. Let's say you're purchasing $1 million property and it appraises at a value of $950,000. Depending on how much money you're putting down, let's say you're putting 20% down, then the math for the lender simply isn't going to work. They run on an 80-20 loan-to-value ratio. I'm not going to go way into too much jargon, but the point is somebody has to make up the difference so that the lender will approve the mortgage. If there is not a clause or an addendum attached that says, hey, if there is an appraisal gap, we'll put up additional funds to make up the difference so that the math works. Without that, the seller and buyer would have to come to an agreement on what's going to happen. Are they going to share the difference by lowering the sale price and additional cash up front? Is the buyer going to require that the seller pays the additional $50,000 in this case to make the math work? While I wish I could say that no homes ever under appraise, that would simply be not true. There is a risk to doing this, but if you have not only the cash to potentially make up the difference if it arises, but if you're confident in the agent that you're working with and their ability to walk through the comps and point out what the value truly is likely to be in an appraisal, then you can put this clause in here with confidence without worrying that you're going to be out of pocket anything else. Now, number 8, we have furnishings. Some properties here come fully furnished, some come unfurnished, most come mostly furnished. Now, this is a silly one, but what can make a difference for people is leaving a property however the sellers want it. The sellers may have assumed that they need to provide a fully furnished property to get the offer price that they were seeking. Now, when push comes to shove, if there are multiple offers and you want to differentiate yourself, we simply ask once again, just like with the closing date, would the seller prefer that it's fully unfurnished? Would they prefer that it's partially furnished? We usually write in the contract, we're okay with them taking and leaving whatever they want. They don't have to furnish an inventory list and spend an hour jotting down every item that's staying or that's going. We simply take it as they leave it. And last but not least is providing any additional incentives that may be important to the seller. So again, I'm going to circle back to the importance of working with a true professional who's experienced in having the conversations with listing agents that will give us these pieces of information that will make or break your offer. For instance, one of the big ones going around, not specifically here in Ocean City, but around the nation, is free rent back. A lot of owners, once again, have to find a home to buy once they sell. And if they're required financially to sell before they buy, it is extremely appealing to allow them to stay in the property for 1, 2, 3, 6 months, whatever it takes, for free. And if that is something that's important to them and it's going to cost you a little bit in just additional mortgage costs without using the property, but it's going to allow you to lock in the property at potentially a lower price point, there is no reason not to consider that. And that's just an example. There are a million things that might be important to a seller, but we only know if we ask. And once we ask, we have to craft our offer accordingly. That's it. You made it through all 9. Thank you for sticking with me through this. This was a lot to digest. So make sure if you want to revisit any of these points, make sure you either rewind or come back to this video when the time comes for you to craft an offer, because this will help you incredibly when it comes to winning. The last and final episode in this series is going to be all about the presentation. And this is nothing that you can do, but everything that your agent can do. But I want to walk you through what they should be doing and how you can help them to present the offer in the best and most appealing way possible. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I will see you on the next one.